my need to be able to tell scripted feature, scripted television, doc feature, doc television. Now I'm in doing an unscripted show. I'm doing animation. That comes from a survival instinct. That doesn't come through from, I want to necessarily do all these things. I mean, I want to be able to always tell my stories. So I want as many tools and as many weapons to tell my stories as possible.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. Today's episode features the DGA Special Projects Committee's recent event, The Craft of the Director, Ava Duvernay. This series of conversations with master filmmakers features an in-depth discussion about the directing process, from pre-production through post. Ms. Duvernay's directorial credits include the Academy Award-nominated film Selma, the Academy Award-nominated documentary 13th, A Wrinkle in Time, Middle of Nowhere, I Will Follow, the DGA Award-nominated and Emmy Award-winning series When They See Us, and episodes of Scandal and Queen Sugar. Please enjoy Ms. Duvernay's conversation with fellow director Alex Stapleton in front of a virtual audience, wherein they discuss her philosophy on directing child actors and how she went deeper while directing When They See Us.
Well, Ava, I'm so excited to be here with you and to start this conversation. And I know we don't have enough time to go into every single detail that I would like to, but I wanted to just kick off by saying that I just want to say that your craft, the way you have approached the craft of storytelling is revolutionary. You've given such dimension to Black lives on screen that is deeply inspiring and long overdue. And I can't believe that I'm getting emotional right now. I'm kicking it off in a great way.
Alex, it's 4:04. You can't break me down 4 minutes in, sis. We're gonna keep it together. But thank you. I appreciate that very much.
One thing that I've noticed looking at your body of work is that you are in it from the ground up. And I'm wondering if that's the key to how your work feels so authentic. And especially when, looking at your most recent film series, When They See Us, I would love to, my first question would be, how did that project come about? How did you begin?
Well, I'm very happy to be here, and thanks to everyone who's joining us. I see all the participants ticking up, so that's really nice. What else are we going to do, right? We're home. We're not shooting. Although some of our friends are starting to shoot, which is really exciting. So I look forward to that day and sit in jealousy until it comes. But how did I start When They See Us? It was a long process, and I think it starts primarily from a place of mindfulness and empathy with who I'm telling the story about. And whether that's, When They See Us or 13th or, Meg and A Wrinkle in Time, my goal is to try to get inside, the mind of the character and really understand the perspective from which I'm going to be telling the story. And the perspective of When They See Us was from the boy's point of view. It was challenging because everything I read, every news piece, every article, every legal brief, to be honest, was not from their point of view. They had no voice in the pop culture canon as it related to what happened to them during the process. How did it feel to them? What were they experiencing? What were they not experiencing? And so it was a good 4.5-year process to try to kind of reverse engineer from all of the paper that was in front of me, to sitting in the homes of the mothers, to spending, hours and hours and days with the men, to understanding their extended families, how they touched, how they didn't. That was the base work before we even started to write. And so that's how I think I try to approach everything is from a place of research and historical analysis, because I'm a big nerd. And also it's just the way that I know to build character.
And originally the idea was that it was going to be a 5-part series and you were going to follow each character, each young man, or
No, originally the idea was it was going to be a film. I originally talked to one of my producers, Jonathan King. Jonathan King was a friend. He was at Participant at the time, and we were at a charity kind of cocktail party. And I said, I need you to give me some money because I don't have any, and I need to pursue, the story rights for the Central Park Five. And that's all I said. I said, I'm going to make a movie. And I'd worked with Participant before, and literally she said, okay, no, that sounds good. Let's do it. And that's really how nothing's ever that easy, but this one was. So his interest, because we're interested in the same things, was easy, but really understanding the form was different, because at the time that I started this, nobody's looking at limited streaming series. Like, that was not top of mind for me let me make a limited series for a streamer. And so in that 4 years, so much changed about, just my perspective on that form, but also to see the flexibility of the form. I fell in love with it. It's like, wait a minute. So this is technically a 5-hour movie, just cut up, no commercial, like, don't have to worry about, sign me up. And so the idea that I could just kind of take the idea of the limited form, originally it started as a 5. As I got in and started to research and we started to write, it felt like, well, are you going to do 5 just because Netflix said you could do 5? Because the story really wants to be 4. Mm-hmm. And so in that moment, you have to honor the story and listen to the story. And so I'm glad we made that decision early on. I'm pretty sure it was the first time someone called Netflix and said, so I'm going to take less than what you gave me, cut it in half, move it around. I remember, and some great people over there. Are you sure? Do you want to just keep this 5th episode in your pocket and let's just keep it on the books? And I said, oh no, I'll keep the money on the books. I'll move it on. I'll amortize it across less episodes. I'm not saying less money. I'm saying less product. But they were lovely. And so, it turned out to be 4. But in my mind early on, you know how you have to try to have organizing principles, for me anyway. Organizing principles for me as I began. It's like, 5 hours, 1 for each man. But the storytelling wanted to be different.
So what was your approach to casting? Because that seems like the first kind of gargantuan task in putting this, besides writing it and doing all of that work and getting through all the court documents and all of that aside, when you really started to roll up your sleeves and get into it, how did you go about casting the young men?
For me, the rolling up the sleeves and getting into it was the writing and the research, and to try to be as accurate as possible with the feelings and the intention that I was, the feelings that the men were sharing with me and their families, and my intention to try to share that. Once we got through that hurdle, then you start thinking, oh my God, I need all these boys. It's really challenging to find young performers who, I won't say can do the work, I'll say that are untrained to do it a different way. Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge. Even with Storm Reed and Derek McCabe in A Wrinkle in Time, so many kids are kind of trained in the Nickelodeon Disney way. And so a big part of it is to look for kids who have not been trained, because it's hard to get that off. And there's nothing wrong with those shows, but that's different than what we're doing. And so it's that training, that very, hyper animated, kind of big work that we see on those shows that kids love. It doesn't really translate. So a lot of what you're looking for is just as a specific background. Someone who is acting, but is not acting in a certain way. And that's hard, because our industry, as it relates to young performers, is really preferring them to be and perform in a certain way. There's no conversation about casting that can happen without not even just to mention a full bow and genuflection to the great Aisha Coley, who is my casting director. She's the only casting director I've ever had since my very first independent film. For some reason, she continues to work with me. And she's really taught me over the years she's tried to teach me some things. Some things I'm too stubborn to learn. But she, you know, as it relates to kids, I don't have kids in my real life, so I don't treat kids like kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I
talk down to them.
Yeah, I just, and I don't think not having kids does that, because I've seen friends who don't have kids who really do the, oh, honey thing, because they don't have kids. A lot of people with kids are like, move and get over there.
Yeah.
Stop that and move over. I think I'm a little bit I come from the friend vibe. I'm just your that old lady who's just, you know, she's like friendly. So I try to just see them where they are in a friend space. And so a big part of the casting, getting back to the question, it's about that training that you're looking for, not that layer of Hollywood veneer training that we're seeing from young performers, but it's also, and with so much of casting, who is this kid and who is his family, his or her family. The family is going to be such a big part of the process, right? This is how the young actor is going home. This is who they're processing with. This is who, when they do a very strenuous day that's violent, that's emotionally rigorous, this is who they're going home to. And so for the safety of my actors, I want to make sure that I am selecting actors who are going to be able to go home to a safe space. Not safe in terms of, you know, it's going to be violent, but safe in terms of emotionally available, because I'm asking them to do work that needs to be processed by a kid's mind the next day or that evening, and even in the preparation. So I'm really, when I cast young people, and particularly for when they see us, I'm also casting the family. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to understand who that kid is, what they're going home to, how they're coming into me, and kind of what their preparation, what their support is at home. That's a big part of the selection process for me. I've not cast kids who were great in the room, but I just felt it's wrong to put this kid through that, because I don't feel like they're going to have enough help, not in the preparation, but in the processing of what they'd have to do. I mean, those boys were put through a lot in when they see us.
How did that work with like Asante Black, who
Asante Black is just a miracle boy. So, but he's
never acted before. So
never acted before. He got the Emmy nomination for this thing. The kid never acted. He did act. He acted in a school play in Baltimore, and he likes to remind me of that. But he was just lovely, and just one of the things he said to me early on is, like, I just want you to know I'm a real actor. You know, he was reading books on theory and, you know, studying plays, and it was just very committed to a larger process. But also, he came from a family that supported that process. They knew they had this special kid, and they were pouring into him and protecting him and, you know, helping him process it all. So for him, you know, I love the day Asante came, and I knew he had a little, because he has someone in his family who's an actor, a well-known actor. And so with all the boys, I said, look, if I say something and you don't know it, tell me. I'm going to be talking about marks and blocking. And if I say a word you don't know, don't act like you know. That is the wrong thing to do. The right thing to do is just say, what's that mean, right? And that happened a lot for many of them. But Asante, I was amazed. He'd never been on a set, but he never asked. I wonder later, was he just kind of playing it? I think he had studied so much as to what to expect.
Wow.
And when he walked in, I remember we did the scene of his interrogation. For people who don't know, he's the kid in the red jacket who, at the end of episode 2, holds the horn, plays the horn in a dream sequence in the street. He plays Kevin Richardson. And I remember him coming on set, and we had a particularly, it was the part of the interrogation where he needed to break. You know, I mean, like, he needed to get to the point that the actor had told, that the real man had told us, this is when they literally broke me in half mentally. And so working with this athlete, it's not happening. And I'm like, oh God, what do I say to this kid? And I'm like, so come over. How you feeling? You okay? You comfortable? Okay. Let's make sure you good. No, I'm good. I'm good. Okay. All right. Good. You know what? Let's try it again. Okay. Let's roll. Okay. We're doing it again. I'm watching. I'm like, come on, get there. Not getting there. I'm like, oh no. Oh, no. Go over. Hey, so let's talk through what's happening here. What do we understand what's going on? Like how let's break down what's going on and go back again with the try. I mean, I'm going every trick. I won't give up my tricks, but every trick. Finally, it's like the fifth time, and I cut, and I'm about to call a break. Like he just needs a break. We need a break. And I lean over to him, and I was like, so, and he's like, is this the time I'm supposed to break now? Is this the time I'm supposed to cry? I was like, yeah, no, this is the part, like right now, like I'm going to roll and he's like, oh yeah, okay, no, I wasn't sure this was the part. I was like, yeah, no, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Yes, this is the part. Action. This kid gives, I mean, the whole place, grown men, grip scaffers, everyone is crying at this kid. He just, is this the part you wanted me to go for it full throttle? So anyway, I could talk all day about Asante Black, but he and all of these boys, men now, just gave it their all. They were all different. They were all beautiful, and I'm grateful to each of them.
Well, how did you, I wanted to rewind to ask, how much information did you share, especially with your younger cast members? How much did you have to walk through? Because you're unloading in this film, or this film series, giant systemic issues, when it comes to race and giant interpretations of how we see young Black youth. And then just the facts of the case and like what happened. How did you prepare them? What did you give them? What was that correspondence like without maybe, were you ever afraid that you would overwhelm them with too much?
No, I wasn't afraid of it. I did not talk about the larger issues and themes. I had them focus on their guy and their story. I told them, at the moment that I cast you, I am no longer the expert for this character. You are the shepherd for this character. You have to know everything. You have to tell me what he would say and do and move, right? I trust you now. And if I'm giving you that responsibility, you better take it and you better be serious. Here's your homework. They got a huge packet, all about their guy that they were portraying. They had time with the real men. It was hard for the boys, though. I would talk to a couple of them. I mean, they're talking to a grown man. And so they have to be that person, this adult, when the adult was young.
Right.
So that was a bit of a process. And I would tell them, don't look for gestures. Don't look for the way he is behaving. Just listen to his story and feel it in your heart. And he'll tell you about how he felt during that time. That's all I want you to do is feel similarly. You don't have to behave. You don't have to be like him. You just have to feel like him, and that'll come out. And so that's how we worked on it. But I didn't want to overload them with the larger part of the process. And I told them not even to pay attention to the other storylines. It was enough heavy lifting. Just focus on your guy, and don't let your guy down. This is you're the one. You're the bearer of his story, and so this is on you. And I'm going to be by your side, but this is for you to do. So they all took it really seriously.
And I can't resist asking what Jarrell Jerome, who plays Corey Wise, which is an incredible performance. You chose to keep him the same throughout instead of casting a younger actor and then the adult version of him. He plays the 25-year span. Yeah. What was it about him as an actor that where you saw that he could handle that, and how did you work with him specifically to continue that thread?
Yeah, I always thought I was going to have 10 actors playing the 5 characters, but Jarrell came in and auditioned for the young version of Corey, and also came in and auditioned for the older version of Corey. Quintessential New York, I can do them both. Let me try this. Let me try that. And it's a bit of a longer, drawn-out story, but ultimately I saw him in the room do both and thought, wow, this lends itself to the way that we've written it, because in the 4 episodes, episode 1 and 2, you see the boys from their arrest through their trial. Episode 3, you see them move from boys to men, but you only see the 4 that didn't go to adult prison. In episode 4, you see what happened to Corey from the moment that he is convicted to the end when he's released. And so episode 3, Corey is absent. They just talk about Corey. What happened to Corey? Where's Corey? And you drop into 4 and it's all about Corey. That form was based on my promise to Corey of when I first sat with him in Harlem. He said, there is no Central Park 5, ma'am, before he knew me. There's 4 plus 1. Because they went through one thing, but I went through something else that they'll never know. And so he doesn't like that term Central Park 5, because he feels like they don't all have that same experience. And I said, well, if you work with me and you tell me your story, I'll make sure that everyone knows that while you love them all and support them, that you had a different story. And so that intention carried through the structure. And so when we came across Jarrell Jerome, I thought, oh, wow, this could even further highlight that promise that I've made to Corey, in that his characterization would be different from everyone else's with one actor. And so you just, it's not even lucky. I don't even know what it is that you find an actor of the caliber of Jarrell Jerome who is able to do both. In the span of the 6 months that we shot, go from 16, innocent with his girlfriend, walking through Harlem with this swagger, with this red high top fade, to, the true torture that he endured. And so, yeah, it was a blessing.
And he also, I want to know more about, like, on set, what is the process? Because it feels like you cocoon, you can feel it exuding like onto how the performances are delivered. The performances are these are young men and men like Michael K. Williams, who I've never seen a more vulnerable performance come out of him. Like, how do
Michael K. Williams?
I thought his performance was incredible, because it was just so layered with, especially in the interrogation scene, that gutted me, and I had to stop watching for a day because it was so symbolic. And again, it goes back to this larger thing of how you work, or at least how it comes across to me, which is that one scene after he talks to that white cop who tells him, oh yeah, you thought you could trust me, but no, not really.
Yeah.
And he has to process that so quickly and then go back into the room and look his son in the eye as a man and tell his son to basically, to compromise the truth. Like, the layers of what you're working with, or what you were working with that day, how did you dissect that with Michael K. Williams? What was the conversation, and how did that get choreographed?
Well, people always talk to me about that scene, and I appreciate you pulling it out. But there were 2 actors in the scene. It was Michael K. Williams and this actor named Jace. I'm going to mess up his last name, Bartok, I think it is. And that white police officer, that's a performance there, because when he first starts in the room, he's good cop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so he's leaning into that, and he's doing that thing in a way that, feels very sincere. And I wanted folks to feel that trust of him. When you first go out into the hallway, you're trusting that officer. You're trusting that you're being protected and served, right, in that moment by a detective. And that the turn, I didn't want any of the, law enforcement portrayals to be, on the nose,
right.
That officer is trying to get something to close this case, and he's doing what I'm told by the family happened. Again, this is from the family's perspectives and the perspective of the men. And this character for Michael K. Williams was tough because that father has passed away, and the child, Antron McCrae, one of the 5, has very hard feelings about what his father did that day. And so as I'm sitting hearing the story from Linda McRae, rest in peace, who's passed away since we made the film, and Antron McRae about what happened, I have to then piece together with Michael the psychology behind why the father did it, right? And it really came from Linda McRae more than anyone. Her interpretation of why in that moment, Mr. McRae walked back into the interrogation room and facilitated the lie for the police. And Michael and I talked so much about it. It really came from not the fear, but I'm going to protect this boy at any cost. I believe what that officer has said, even though he's shown me to be disingenuous. I believe that if I do this, I can take him home.
Right.
And so the direction is get him home. Get that boy home. And if this man has told you the only way to get him home is for him to say this, then you better get him to say it. And so that was the engine for those scenes. And it was, tough day.
You've also, I'm seeing this throughout your work too. We're talking about this cop in particular, but I do appreciate how much dimension you give to the villains in your work. I'm calling them villains, but even with Selma, with George Wallace.
But not before you had said the words Vera Farmiga, and with that I have to, because that lady is. Wow, that woman is something else. She is I don't even know what to say. One of my favorite actors. Had really wanted to work with her for so long. And you get, as a director, you get an actor that you wanted to work with for so long on set, and you feel away, I don't know, I do feel like, oh my gosh, this is my day. And we just clicked so beautifully, and she was so open and giving, and she played a really hard role there as Elizabeth Lederer, and she's the one that had to interrogate the boys on the stand. She's the one that had to kind of do that hard, heavy lifting on the stand, and I don't know, I can't speak highly enough about the experience of working with her. And, I really, whether it's in Selma with the folks that had to play racists, whether it's When They See Us with the folks that had to play officers that were found to have, been a part of a case in which minors were convicted for something that they didn't do. That's not easy.
Yeah.
Not easy. And so I find that in a lot of my work, my Black actors are applauded. As well they should, because they're dope. But they're acting opposite someone that has to apply that pressure. And I found that some of my most intense conversations are with the white actors on set who have joined the production because they appreciate the intention and they want to get the story across, but then they have to be the aggressor in the scene. You know what I mean? And that's a hard thing to grapple with. I remember for Selma, these are just background actors in Alabama. Okay, let's start there. All right? They're not even used to anyone in the directorial unit having any kind of conversation with them. Nobody's even talking. So I'm coming over, it's the director, I'm coming over. Hot, we're in the South. And I say, okay, hi, my name is Ava. I'm so happy you're all here. And first hand up. Ma'am, I just want to let you know I'm not a racist, and I am here to, because I saw the ad, and I believe in Dr. King and what he stands for. Thank you, sir. No, I know that you all are not real racists. I'm going to believe that you're not real racist because you're here because you want to tell the story of these freedom fighters. So don't worry. I don't think you're a real racist, but you have to act like a racist today. Okay, we'll do it. So then they continue on, and I'm telling them what I want. This is not on the page, but these are the things I want you to yell. And because of SAG, you all have to yell this together. So if all the directors out there, you can't have one person saying something because that's different pay rate. We didn't have a lot of money, so they have to say it as a group. Okay? So all of you are going to be yelling these following terms. Go home inward. And I'm telling them what to say. Faces are falling, eyes are getting big, like, no. Young lady raises her hand. Ma'am, do you want us to say the N word or the N word? And I'm like, what does that mean? I say, the N word, like the full word? I said the full, yes. No, don't say the words, the N word, say the full real word. But can't I just say the N word? I said, are you asking me if you can just say the actual words, the N word, like get out of here, N word? Yes, ma'am. I said, no, ma'am, you cannot, you have to say the real word. Because at that time, there was no N word, because this is back when they said, the real word. I mean, Alex, some of the convos across the movies have been, they've been really telling, but they touch my heart because people, have a real hard time with it. And so part of my job while bolstering the Black actors in these situations is also to really hold hands with our white actors who, rightly have some challenges.
Is that, do you find when you're on a project like Selma and on a project like When They See Us, do you feel, I mean, I know when I do like heavy content with my docs, I'm by the end of the day, I'm spent. I'm drained. I have nothing left to give. It seems like you give so much on set. How do you recharge your battery when you're in the middle of shooting?
Oh, I don't. I get asked a lot, tell us about your self-care routine. I don't know. No, we know when we're directing, you're just in it. I mean, yeah. I was talking to a director who's like, yes, a really famous director I was on a festival jury with, who said, yes, I get massages on the weekend. I said, while you're shooting, a massage on the weekend? Yes, you must. You don't get massages on the weekend? I said, I do not get massages on the weekend. They come to the hotel. They give you a massage. I said, okay, well, no, that's good to go. I said, yeah, no, I don't do that. They were like, and of course, you have the meals, brought in. It's the catering. I said, oh, like crafty, like catering? He said, no, your own special meals that are brought in to nourish you with fruits and vegetables and berries. I said, who pays for that? Oh, the studio. I said, your studio pays for special foods for you? It's like, damn it, I've got the Black woman's deal and there wasn't a chef included. But yes, the bottom line is there are things that people do. I'm joking. I'm sure someone would pay for it if I asked. I'm very sure if I said I need meals and a masseuse, it would be taken care of. But I don't, because I am obsessed during that time. And I'm just waiting to get in for the next day. I'm trying to sleep. I'm trying to restore. I'm trying to meditate. I'm trying to pray. I'm trying to continue to study. I'm constantly, iterating on the script. And just working to make the best thing happen. So I'm the worst answerer of that question. Well, the answer is I do nothing except sleep and go back to the set.
Well, what do you do? How do you start your days on set? What do you do when you first arrive?
What do I do when I first arrive? God, every day is different. So often on the indies, but certainly on When They See Us, we were in New York. I can't even believe how much we were out and about in New York. I mean, when will we be able to shoot like that again? We were everywhere. But, it was a 5-hour film. And so there was no way to fully prep that, every bit of it. So it was a rolling prep. So many days I started the day scouting somewhere else, something that's coming up 3 weeks from now, or reviewing and approving sets on the stages or build. So much of that, it was very rare that my first thing I did on the day was land on the set. So that was a big part of that piece. Or I'd start in a rehearsal for something the next day. It was 134 speaking parts. Casting was on a rolling basis as well. So when we started, we were not fully cast. The prep would have been too long and expensive to do it in that way. So we were on top of each other.
You were cutting too, right? You were in post. You were cutting too. You were in post for part of it.
Yeah, we were in post. But the editors on that were incredible. Spencer Averick, Terry Shropshire, and Michelle Tesoro were so trusted and skilled that I'm not a big cut watcher while I direct. Like
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in seeing cuts while I direct. And that's really different. Some people really like to see cuts as they go. I may say, I need to get my mind around how this scene looks as it connects to something else. Give me a rough, but I'm not trying to see assemblies as I go. Because I know myself and I know I'll get down on myself and, let me just look, I'll do all the depressing stuff later when I get home. So, so we were shooting in New York and cutting in LA, and beyond just things that were needed for continuity or, obviously things you need for VFX to keep that rolling and to be feeding the VFX machine. I really didn't watch assembly. So yes, post was happening, but I wasn't emotionally engaged.
Well, I'm curious, just kind of going back, because you mentioned shooting on a stage. I would love to maybe kind of segue into like where your visual inspiration comes from. The visual language in When They See Us is incredible. The production design is incredible. Obviously, Bradford Young is incredible. How do you communicate, especially with your work that's has a historical context? How do you communicate the lens and the way that you want to shape that story to look and feel to your DP, production designer, your whole team?
Yeah, it's just really detailed work in the building it brick by brick together early on. On Selma, there were some Paul Fusco pictures that I loved, that photographer took a RFK's funeral procession on the train that I was really enamored by, that had these soft edges and this kind of really ethereal feel that I brought to Bradford Young, the cinematographer of Selma, and said, I want these frames to look like this, and was the basis for a lot of our common language, on a DC Comics pilot that I just made for HBO Max. My DP, Matt Lloyd, completely different references, on When They See Us, it was something we were still finding, and it was really, it came out of being on the ground in Harlem, in the Schomburg projects, in prisons, in precincts, and feeling like there was just a layer of smoke. Everything just felt gray and kind of like walking, kind of in a cloud. Cloud, though, has a positive sense. It's kind of like this dark cloud. And so, that added to our ideas about really shooting through atmosphere on that. So there was constant atmosphere going through it. Our poor boys, they'd sit in the chair, we're like, bring in the atmosphere, pumping in smoke and atmosphere. And I remember one time, one of the boys, I think it was Khalil Harris, it's like, so is this a smoky, is there supposed to be smoke in this room? And I was like, no, you're not going to see the smoke. It's like, well, how can I not? I can barely see you. He said, no, the camera's not going to pick up the smoke. You feel smoke, but I promise you there won't be smoke on the camera. So one of those boys didn't believe me, that he said, there's no way all the smoke in this room isn't going to be on the camera. He was actually, should I play in a smoky room? Should I be coughing and moving this away? I said, stand still. We're putting smoke around you. And so you see that just light haze that Brad shot through for it. And I remember the kid, can't remember which one it was amazed that you couldn't see it, because literally the smoke on set was quite thick, but the look was beautiful. So yeah, it's a process you build layer by layer. And I think if you go into prep, thinking you've got it all figured out, that's just a waste of energy. I try to go in with references and ideas and a spirit of collaboration around it all. And that's different from some directors who are very precise. Mm-hmm. I think there's a precision to my collaboration and how far I will go. But, I'm not going in, lacking flexibility around ideas, because ultimately it all feeds into, something that will have my name on it. So I always shake my head. I can't figure out directors who are not collaborative, as if it's going to say directed by these 90 people. I mean, ultimately, you get to hear the ideas. Everyone is graciously giving you their ideas. Take them. You get all the credit at the end. Why fight? If you're confident enough in your position as director, then you shouldn't fight ideas. You know what I mean? They're gifts. They're going to make you look good. You know what I mean? So open your arms and take them. That's how I think of it. And that's how we get down on our sets.
And how important is it to you? Because you do have frequent collaborators, Bradford goes all the way back to with you from one of your early documentaries, My Mic Sounds Nice, and you can see the style that you guys do together, kind of starting to percolate, and then middle of nowhere, it's really, it's really there, and it just, what is your working relationship like with him, and do you guys push and pull? Do you how does that process work?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Bradford's work with me looks different than his work with Denis Villeneuve, and different than his work with Andre Dussimo. He adapts. He can adapt to the look of the director that he's working with, and still keep a consistency that feels like his. I think my work with him is probably the most, let's say the least experimental. His work with Andrew is delicious. Like, I actually want to take bread and dip it in the picture and eat it like butter on bread. It's so gorgeous and beautiful and just dripping with energy and flavor. And so yeah, no, it's with whether it's with Bradford, whether it's with Kira Kelly and Antonio Calvache, who are the DPs of Queen Sugar and setting that look, whether it's Kira Kelly and Hans Charles, who were my DPs on 13th, Tobias Schliessler, who's my DP on Wrinkle, that DP relationship is so, I won't even say important, just vital to success for me, because that is, that position and my editor's position really are kind of my best friends in the endeavor. The two people that I have to feel that I can trust and rely on in order to get what's in here out. Yeah. And so those choices are really hard to make. I've been lucky. I've had the same editor forever, Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's like getting married. You got to choose carefully.
Well, it's also interesting because you have amazing documentaries that you do, and you have amazing scripted projects that you do. And I think it's really rare, especially with Spencer, as an editor, to have most doc directors only work with doc editors, and we don't really touch the scripted editors and vice versa. So is that, like, does the relationship and how you direct, does it change how you give direction or how you work through post on your scripted material with Spencer versus, when you're in the doc space?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's all, it really, for me, is all storytelling. I think my need to be able to tell scripted feature, scripted television, doc feature, doc television. Now I'm in doing an unscripted show. I'm doing animation. That comes from a survival instinct. That doesn't come from I want to necessarily do all these things. I mean, I want to be able to always tell my stories. So I want as many tools and as many weapons to tell my stories as possible. Because if one day, and the day will come, where folks don't want to see my movies anymore, my scripted features, maybe they'll see my doc features. And there'll come a day where they won't want to see my doc features. Well, maybe I can tell the story, an animated story. And there'll come a day where they won't want to tell the animated story. I'll be like, you know what? Branded content. Let me go do that. And if they're like, you know what? Not the branded kind of like, you know what? Skywriting stories. Like, I'm never gonna not do it. So in my mind, I gotta know how to do it and do them all, because there's not a real precedent for, Black women directors to have long careers consistently creating work. Let me say that there aren't Black women directors who've been working for a long time, but so many of our heroes, our heroines, Julie Dash, Nima Barnett, Uzan Palsi, have not been able to or empowered and supported to consistently direct work, right? And so it's from watching them and seeing them diversify. Many of them teach, many of them have gone to TV. All the things that they've done is say, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be able to always be a moving target, because if this shuts down, I'm going here, I'm doing this. And it's been helpful, especially in this COVID environment. I can't shoot. And I've said this for years, like, golly, I got to have many tools in my toolbox in case I can't shoot. Now we can't shoot. And so unscripted television and animation, and, you can always cut a doc and research for your doc, and always just making sure that there's a way to tell the story. So in answer to the question, when I think about how to make the story, that is a function of just standard process. But I don't think of the story in terms of form. I just think of it as a story I must tell. My job is to find the best form, and luckily I can, because I have trained myself to be able to work in different forms. Like if I get a book now, which I get a lot of books, I can think, is this film or TV?
Yeah.
Is this a feature or a series? Is this doc or is it narrative? And to have all those tools at our disposal at this point is just so rare and, a beautiful thing. I really enjoy it.
And you're taking so many people with you on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the other part of it that, I know that's not about being on set in a way, directly related to how you operate you as the director, but you're navigating all these spaces and trailblazing paths, for people to do the same, behind you or in front of you or all over the place.
All around.
I did want to selfishly kind of, talk about your doc. I think your documentaries are amazing. And I selfishly wanted to carve out a little bit of time to talk about.
For anyone that doesn't know, Alex is a beautiful doc filmmaker. So she wasn't introduced as a formidable filmmaker, but she is. So I would encourage you to check her out.
Thank you, Ava.
She's good at her job.
Well, thank you. I wanted to ask you when you approach a documentary, because I know that you're, a student of history, you get way in there. How much can you at this point plan out the story that you want to tell before you start shooting? Or do you find your real narrative, how you're going to get from A to Z in the edit bay? Do you kind of have like a rough idea and then you
I always go in with an idea, but when I analyze it on the back end, very little in the doc space, very little of the original idea makes its way through. Because you get into that edit, and the edit's my favorite place. If I ask filmmakers sometime, this is a total nerd out director question, but I ask filmmakers sometime, okay, you can only choose to do one. You can either be in prep, you can be in principal, or you can be in post. Which would you choose? 80% say they want to be shooting principal. And then the other 20 is split 50-50 between prep and post. For me, it is 100% post. If someone just gave me the footage and said, you were asleep and we shot all this, and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, great, I got it from here. Because for me, post is the place where it really comes together. That's why when I said earlier, when I'm on set, I'm not really engaged in post, because I'm like, I'm going to get to that, because when I'm in post, that is where I make it. That's where, for me, that's where I make it. And that's where I have the most freedom in post, in that edit, with that color, with that sound, with that, all of that. That is where I really have the least amount of people around me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're shooting, it's like, okay, it's a free for all. Everybody come on in, let's do this. And even in prep, a lot of people, a lot of voices, but it all gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And at the end of the day in post, it's me and Spencer at a little, in one room.
And your footage.
Two people, and footage, that's right. And what dream place is there to be? In a dark room with your friend and your footage, I mean, that's a party. So I love it. I love post, and it always changes. And that's, I think, my favorite part about filmmaking is post.
Do you do a lot of test screening for any? I mean, I'm sure some of it might be required when you're in a large studio project.
Yeah, it's my view to test screenings have really changed as I think I've matured
Really?
as a filmmaker, or just gotten older. I used to just be very against it, especially in a studio environment. It's like, okay, so these people are going to tell me what this is.
My story.
Very against it. I mean, it just felt like stab wounds, to have to go through that process. And, I've been through a studio process in that way where, sometimes it's used to further a certain narrative that the studio wants. Mm-hmm. It's used as backup to whatever they want. And so it's really just come from gaining more control over my projects and being able to pick partners in a different way that's helped me see test screenings and hear it differently. I think one thing that some of the things they don't teach you in film school, I wouldn't know, I didn't go, but I don't think there's a class about how to hear and how to get feedback from test screenings, because that's a whole course of how to actually hear that feedback and be able to discern real helpful information and stuff that's just going to throw you into a tailspin. And so that's only come through time, mm-hmm. And be able to be comfortable enough to show something early, and I think it's to know what I want to get out of it.
Right.
These are the questions I have about the thing. I'm not looking for, okay, everything you say, you're Charlie Brown's mom. But what do you think about this part? Because this is the part I'm not sure about. And so some of these tools that I think, are helpful in that, as filmmakers, we need to talk about to each other more.
Yeah.
About how, and that's, that's all a part of the end product. Also, I'm a former marketer and publicist, so I get a lot of calls from my fellow filmmakers about marketing and publicity, and a lot. I should start a small side practice called "Your Filmmaker Marketing Presentation is Tomorrow," and you need to practice. Because I get a lot of, and I love it. It still lets my I still get to.
I don't know how you find all this time. I don't know how you do. I don't know who you are.
It's fun because I used to be a part of those filmmaker meetings on the other side. I know what the marketing department's going through to get ready for the meeting, and I know how to hide things. I know how to fudge when you don't really have the thing, and you already know what the filmmaker's going to ask, and just trying to give filmmakers more robust questions to ask and help them understand who all the different departments are. And anyway. But it's I think if more directors talked about their full process, and there's something about our profession that it's like we are the leaders, so we know. But I think, some of my best conversations have been about, times of vulnerability where you talk to a friend who's gone through it, and, you're able to get insight into, that's why I wish, some of the filmmakers of note and filmmakers who are well known and have gone through this stuff, or even filmmakers from generations before who may not be actively making film, there's so much information and knowledge to be shared there, especially around navigating the politics of the filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I wish we shared more.
Well, and that's why, I feel like everyone who's tuning in is probably very grateful for you taking the time. And it's not a wrap up, folks, because we do have more questions here, but for you to take the time to kind of dissect your process. I also wonder in my head, because I hear you when you talk about directors. We operate in silos. You know, we have our own little ecosystems of how we make content. And so I didn't go to film. I didn't even graduate from college. So I did not go to film school. And often when I run into directors that don't have the film school pedigree, I'm over it now, but when I was younger, it was like, ooh, I can't even really let people know that I have no idea what you're talking. You know, there's so much, and it's like, who do you trust? Because you have to appear, you know, to be in control at all times. Mm-hmm. And it's like you were talking about, you know, with your actors, like giving them permission or encouraging them rather, to let you know when they had a question. And what would you say to, you know, some of the younger directors maybe tuning in right now, like who are trying to navigate that balance, you know, of being taken seriously, but also trying to learn as they go?
Right. No, it's tough. I mean, you have to find your own tribe, you know, because everyone's not to be trusted. And there will be people who are like, oh, gosh, she doesn't know this, you know. So you have to, you know, be able to talk to people who you trust and to, you know, I really don't like the word mentor. I've talked about that before, but because of the process in Hollywood, it's so disingenuous. It's kind of like walking up to someone and saying, will you be my mentor? It's like walking up to someone and say, will you be my lover? It's like, I don't know you. No. Why? I don't know anything about you. Because it's, for me, that mentorship, that exchange is an intimate process. I'm going to sit down and tell you what I've experienced. I'm going to try to help you not do that. I need to know you and know that you're taking that seriously and feel like you're worth that exchange, because it's my time and it's my heart and it's the way that I feel. And so with that, you know, I just encourage people to look at building relationships and building kind of a circle of folks that they can trust. Even if you have one person, you know, I have a great friend who's a director who I go on walks with. We walk maybe 3 times a week. And we talk a lot about work, mm-hmm. you know, and what we're experiencing on calls and what we're, you know, experiencing on sets and what we're experiencing in negotiations and what we're experiencing with actors and trading pages and all that stuff. And that's just one person who, if she was the only person that I walked with, would be enough. Luckily, I'm very fortunate to have more. But if you can find one kind soul who will, you know, look upon you with the empathy that we all want as artists, you're ahead of the game. So just find one. You can do that. Not you, but the young person out there who's watching.
And, you know, I might kind of pivot here, but I'm so interested because just again with how you work with actors and your relationship, you know, with someone like Oprah, who you also direct. Is it when you have a relationship outside of, you know, of a film project, is that like a tricky thing when you get onto set, like, you know, how to kind of take the role as a director, especially when you are dealing with someone as large and you know, formidable as, you know, Oprah is? What is it like to direct Oprah, I guess is the question.
She's a different category. It generally, do I find it hard to take the director mantle if there's someone I know in real life? Absolutely not. I never find it hard to take the director mantle. Really, I just don't. But it's my favorite thing to do. What I need to do is direct less. For example, when we were prepping for this to come on this this call, I said, Alex, is there a book that you want to put on the bottom of your laptop to raise up your screen so that our eyes are looking? And I heard myself and I was like, you don't have to direct the Zoom, okay? Pull it back. Ava, don't direct the Zoom. And she was gracious. She found a book. She put it up. Wasn't quite high enough. If she was on my set, I'd say no higher. But I said, you know what?
We're going to roll with it.
I said, it's beautiful. It's fine. So what I need to do is pull back from directing. But Oprah is a different thing. I mean, now you're dealing with stratospheric icons and legends, Cicely Tyson. You know, there are a few people where you get into a real space of, what am I going to tell this person? Like, literally, what could I ever tell Cicely Tyson? There's nothing I can tell her. Cicely Tyson said to me on a show I have called Cherish the Day, and there were a bunch of directors who were going to be directing her through these episodes. She was a series regular. I would like to be directed, she said. I like to be directed. I'm just telling you that right now. Some people don't want to direct me, and that upsets me. I want to be directed. I said, okay, yes, ma'am. I said, how much do you like to be directed? I want feedback. I want to know. I want answers to my questions. I want to know what to do. I said, well, okay, thank you. How gracious to know that you are a living legend and you're walking onto the set and everyone's like, what do I even say? You know, I remember reading an article. It was about either Al Pacino or Robert De Niro. I think it was De Niro. And it was someone that he was directing who was fairly new. And the article was about the director. And the director said this, and it always stuck with me. And this is before I was director, and I thought, wow, that would be wonderful to have that kind of graciousness. The director said he overheard De Niro say, I'll call you back, my director's coming. Right? And that just in hearing that, it made the young director feel like, oh, he thinks of me as a director, like I'm going to step up and be that.
Right.
And so I just think, that kind of graciousness is even what directors of note can give to their crew members and their department heads. Sometimes you get in these environments, I'm finding it a little bit now for me, that people might be, it's unfortunate, but people might be hesitant to tell me what they really think. Or to correct me, or to give me an idea. And so, or to ask a question. And I think that graciousness to open up a space to say, this is my expectation, is that you're going to be in collaboration here. You got to ask me questions. You got to tell me things. Like Miss Tyson did, and like Oprah did very early on, is what we should be doing for each other. They did that for me and made it a lot more comfortable. Not all the way comfortable because it's Oprah. I mean, to say, cut. So could you? And she says, yes, I can. And you're like, okay, thanks. Okay, rolling. Let's try again. It could be intimidating early on, but we've done it a couple times now, so it's easier.
Yeah, but I've always been interested in comparing how you guys interacted on, or what the process was like on Selma versus Wrinkle in Time. And also in Wrinkle in Time, it's like she's in this with the three misses. Yeah. And they had such, Mindy, Reese, Oprah, like they played off of each other so well. Like, was that all, like, how did that decision to cast the three of them come about? Did the two of them agree to, how did that all work out?
Well, Mindy was the first one that I wanted because I wanted a Mrs. who wasn't black or white. And she was in my early, before Aisha Coley, the casting director, was even on the project. I said, we got to get Mindy Kaling. And because I needed a comedian, I felt for this one particular Mrs. who didn't talk much. She only speaks in quotes. So, if the script is the actor can only speak in quotes, you need someone who's going to put some zhuzh on that and make it funny and, kind of. So I knew I needed a comedian for it, and I didn't want anyone who was black or white. I wanted another culture, another kind of person. And Mindy was my first choice, and she was the first yes. And then from there, I remember someone saying in the pre-production or in early casting, this character sounds like Oprah. I was like, yeah, it does kind of sound like her, and I was like, ask her. And I asked her one day. She said she loved the book, and okay, wow. And then Reese is such a big, massive star. And, that ask was I did not know her at all. I know her well now, and she's just lovely, all of them. But I don't even think Reese was as stratospheric then as she is now. When we were, Reese is like, talk to Reese, I'm like, lady, you run Hollywood. What? How many shows do you have? you're producing them and acting in them and have the book club and have those perfect looking kids. Like, what are you doing? And you're cooking on IG and like, what is happening? You're perfectly dressed. Everything's ironed. How does this work?
And she does TikToks.
Yeah, and they're funny. And she, like, what are you doing? Yeah, she's incredible. And she's, so they were a great threesome. And them working together, they kind of lightened, I think I think they had a lighter weight on their shoulders because it wasn't all on one person. Like they all have been leads, but this one was an ensemble and they were able to play off each other and they had a really good time. It was super fun work making that film.
Yeah. And how was that? Because, you write so like basically everything that you make just about, right?
A wrinkle.
So what was that process like? How did you incorporate Jennifer, Lee into the process, or how did you guys work, and what was that process like adapting like one of the most cherished books around the world?
Well, Jennifer Lee's a genius. Yes, she wrote Frozen. Yeah. And wrote Winkle, but also runs Disney Animation. I think it's Disney Animation, right? Yeah, she's a president she was a writer and producer, and now she runs the company. She's like, the Jay-Z of screenwriting, like started just as an MC and now she runs the thing. That's Jennifer Lee. Great lady. But ultimately going into Wrinkle, I knew it wasn't mine. Nothing in it was, the book wasn't mine, the script wasn't mine. This was me trying to serve Disney as best I could within the way that I knew to do things. And so it was a very different way of making films for me, something that I'm so happy I experienced. I don't think I was particularly healthy within the time, wasn't particularly good at it. There's some folks, great friends of mine, who are really good at it, really good at taking things that are within that studio environment and making it their own and being able to hang on to their voice through the process. And I definitely struggled with that there. I look at that film and I'm proud of it, and I think fondly on the time making it. And when I see the film, I was like, you got some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
That was never meant to be there, right? Like I'm infiltrated, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And got some things in that, I think wouldn't have been there if I wasn't there, and and I'm happy that they're on screen and that they exist. But ultimately, that process is a much different process than when they see us, or 13th or Sugar, or anything where the buck stops with me and I can control it all. So if I see something wrong or something not fitting or something not working, I can just go fix it. I can write myself out of it. I can edit my way out of it. I can direct my way into it. And, it's a different animal. So, but beautiful experience. I wouldn't change it.
And how would you, when you look back at like even your the first season that you put together for Queen Sugar, now the show is, it's just gone on and on and on. And my mom actually sent me a list of questions to ask you about Queen Sugar. And I was like, no, Mom, it's not appropriate to ask Ava these questions.
Queen Sugar is the show that is a secret cult following.
Yes.
The people who watch Queen Sugar love Queen Sugar. And, majority Black women audience, but I'm always surprised. I have this thing where when people, and I'm fortunate in my life, and this makes me emotional when I think of it, but I'm fortunate in my life to be able to walk out of the door as a Black woman director. I mean, come on, what are the odds? And for people to look at me, come up to me, and want to talk to me. And they smile at me. Every day I get smiles. And I think of so many people, get emotional, in this world who are never smiled upon. And every day my work has brought smiles into my life. and people walk up to me and they smile at me. And in that moment, right before they're going to speak, I used to think they're going to say something about, this person looks like they'll say something about wrinkle. This person looks like a 13ther. It's going to be about 13th. This person, and one of the joys of my life is I've stopped doing that. And I've just taken the smile, and I marvel at the kinds of people who talk to me about different projects that you would never expect. You know, the Filipino custodian who came up to me in Washington, D.C. as I got off an elevator and I was walking away, who, ma'am, tapped me on the back. Are you the lady who made Wrinkle in Time? Yes. Can I tell you how much that book saved my life? And would tell me this story, and I would never imagine him. Or I was shooting When They See Us. It was a woman, blonde, MAGA, okay? Like full on prison staff in New York City, who was assigned to me to take me where I needed to go. Whenever I walked off the set, it was a working prison, so she had to be with me. And we had a nice rapport. And at the end of it, I said to her, so you believe in the Make America Great thing? And she's like, yeah, I do. And we had a conversation, and she then started talking about Ralph Angel and Queen Sugar. Ralph Angel is a fine young black man.
Yes.
Queen Sugar, who does not have anything to do with this lady. There's nothing connecting this lady and that. And she broke down, I don't think he should be with Darla because she has her own issues. She needs to be in rehab. And I'm mind blown, like just, These are the gifts. These are the joys that I get to experience with folks walking up to me and talking to me about I don't know what your question was.
No, but this is, again, like where we started at the beginning of this conversation. It's why your work is radical. It's why, the power of what you're doing. And Queen Sugar, which, by the way, my mother flew from Houston, Texas to LA to come see you in the cast 2 years ago. Flew.
Wow. I wish I would have known.
Just to come see you. I see the power that Queen Sugar has in that audience. And when I look at even my own mom, I'm like, when she watches my mom is a Black Southern woman who's a lesbian who grew up, with me, a kid in the 80s. We talk about living in silos.
Yeah.
That my mom lived in the silo.
Yeah.
And what you do with a show like Queen Sugar is you give people these access points. You create a character like Nova that gives like my mom I'm vibing. She loves Nova. And she's never, been able to enjoy like kind of the family drama, kind of show. She always has to separate herself out of it. And you put everybody in, even within our own culture. And that is sheer magic. It's magical. It's to me, it's activism. It's leadership. I mean, it's all of the things that changes like how we deal with each other, in this crazy country. Just sorry, DGA, but yeah, like it's
they'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay. But I also feel like with Queen Sugar, you have the icing, but you also kind of, it's a really powerful show. You're dealing with like systemic racism, life after incarceration, sexuality within the Black. I mean, so much stuff is packed into that show. How do you know, like, oh, okay, I think we're a little bit on the soapbox right now, or like, how do you measure that dance?
I think Queen Sugar is a combination of soap opera and soapbox. We're just looking for the soft space in the middle. You're going to walk away from a season of Queen Sugar with a character who has, had a very scary encounter with a racist cop. You're going to be dealing with Black farmer land issues. You're going to be dealing with, fear around the trans community within the Black community. You're going to be dealing with issues of faith challenged, all wrapped in, 6 packs, not of beer, of apps. Okay? Great clothes, some laughs, romance. And the idea is, I just want you to watch. I want you to get the protein bar, but I'm going to put it in a Snickers wrapper.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be eating a protein bar and thought you were eating Snickers. So, our audience, come for Ralph Angel, stay for Nova's politics. and he has a lot going on too. That character, all of them are built in adapting the book, taking those characters and putting them in this world was built just for this. They look one way, but they're functioning within the story in a different way that hopefully can take us to different places as we think about issues within the Black community. But I love, I love hearing about it from sisters, from Black women. And I also am just shocked at the very small numbers of people who aren't Black who watch it. And I love mostly Southern white women.
Mm-hmm. And
I was on a Native people's reservation and working on a project and not working on a project. I was just there with a friend, and I couldn't believe how many Native women were telling me that their favorite show was Queen Sugar, and it was the reason made me so sad. What else will we watch? We don't have anything to watch with us, so it felt close. The family structure felt close. I understood the auntie and the, you know what I mean, and everyone who's in it. I understood the angst. I understood that rural feel. Mm-hmm. And it was in that moment that I decided to start developing a similar show, with an all Native cast.
Wow.
And which is so good. I just got the script. Oh my gosh, so great.
Oh my God.
And, but just the idea that that the work and the intention that we have with work, you never know as an artist where that intention is going to ricochet and who it's going to touch and how. When I'm making Nova, I may not have specifically thought about your mother, but there's nothing better than hearing that there's someone out there who sees or connects with that character. There's just nothing better. I mean,
she's almost 70.
She's almost 70. Tell her I said hello.
I will.
Yeah, but she's got to come to the set and visit.
Well, we have about 10 more minutes, so I feel like we should go back to Selma. It would feel I would not feel right ending this conversation not talking about John Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian, who both passed away on the same day. Mm-hmm. What was how much interaction did you have with them when you were creating Selma?
Well, I'll talk about Reverend C.T. Vivian first. As I was making Selma, it's similar to like I'm working on some DC comic stuff right now. You got to get to know all the superheroes to be able to create the world. And you have to know their powers so that you can create the story and show how their powers work. And so that's how I approached Selma. They were all superheroes to me. And the story wasn't just about King. It was about all of them. And so I studied them all, watched tape on them all, read all their books so that I could really understand them. And I have to say, out of all of them, C.T. Vivian was my favorite one. So when we invited him to the set, and I interviewed him a little bit on the phone. I remember the day that he walked on the set. I couldn't even get myself together, Alex. It was like Superman walked on the set. I was so sweaty palms and he was just, he was so great to me and so himself as I'd studied him. And I had the occasion to be around him a bit in the premiere activities and just was everything you would want your hero to be. John Lewis, the congressman, I've never called him John Lewis, call him the congressman. I was around much more and got to know much more. He and Ambassador Young were the two that I depended on most for the script. And he He's just a lovely, lovely human being. And spent so much time with me and answered every stupid question that he probably answered 10,000 times. My favorite thing is when he would say, no one's ever asked me that question. No one? What? How could this be? It happened maybe 4 times. But so gracious, so lovely, so call and check on me, just checking in, came to the set a few times, always gave the best hugs, and great advice that went beyond the film. The last time I saw them both was earlier this year, I saw them together.
Wow.
At Tyler's opening of his studio.
Wow.
I'll tell the story as we get towards the end. So it's Tyler Perry's opening of his studio, which, I don't feel like folks in Hollywood pay enough attention to or give enough of a hat tip to. What he's done there is extraordinary. You have to walk it to believe it. It is every studio in Hollywood. So imagine the Universal lot, the Warner lot, the Disney lot, the Paramount lot, the Sony lot, all the lots. All of them put together times 3. That's how big the land is that he has, a former army barracks, right? He's taken that over with sound stages, state of the art that he's built from scratch, and like full towns that it's like, oh, this is a full town. Is this a neighborhood? No, this is not a neighborhood. Are these sets? Yeah, these are facades. But it can't be. It's as far as the eye could see. Like what you would usually do with visual effects, it's real and there. Usually you just have the house and then VFX takes over the street. No, you could just, it's this little street. So we're at the opening of this, and it's a hot ticket. And the invitation had come the summer before, the save the date, and it like opened up automatically and confetti. It was like, oh my gosh, this is the invite? Oh, yes, this is going to be fantastic. And everyone's going to be there. Get there. We're in Atlanta, black tie dressed. Everyone. It's Beyonce. It's Kaepernick. If they were Black and have done anything of note in the culture in and are living, they're there. I'm not playing with you. So Mary J. Black, everyone you can think of. Every Grammys you've been to or watched, every Black person known to man is there. It's a big room. People are just mesmerized by even stars are mesmerized by the stars, right? Oprah, everybody's there. And off in the corner, in a place of prominence, but still like not in the hullabaloo, because why would they want to be, is Congressman John Lewis, Reverend C.T. Vivian, and Ambassador Andrew Young, and their companions. I see them, I cross the room to them, I say, gentlemen, hi, do you remember me? Girl, sit down. We remember you. You talked our ear off for 2 years. Yes, we remember you. Sit down. Hugs. I haven't told the story. I thought about it. Hugs all around. And I sat down next to the congressman, and I said, Congressman, what's going to happen to this country? What's going on? This is in February, I think, January, February. What's going to happen to us? And he said, we'll be fine. We always are. We survive. This is going to be just fine. I said, what do I do? What do I do? He said, do everything. Do everything. And so I hope we do. I hope we do everything. I try to do everything and take that in the way that it resonates with you. Whatever everything is to you. It doesn't mean quantity. It means, for me, quality. The quality in which we're telling our stories, the quality with which we're building our crews, quality with which we're engaging with each other and listening to each other. It all matters, is basically what he was saying. It all matters. Mm-hmm. Every little thing matters. So this matters, and you matter, Alex Stapleton. And thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm really glad you agreed.
Oh, I'm just honored to because this is what we do. This is a part of our culture. Is for the first time we get to share the oral tradition, and we get to make movies, and we get to make content. Yeah. and you you're shining that bright light, that we can all flock to. So I'm just so happy to be here with you as well. Wish it was in person, but
next time. Well, we shine it on each other. And I just want to thank the DGA for allowing me to do this. I don't know if I'm a likely pick. I don't know what instigated this invitation, but I accept it. I receive it. I want to thank the whole DGA staff and the board and everyone.
Special projects, Jeremy.
Special projects
committee.
Thank you, Jeremy.
We got to do more of these. We only scratched the surface with your work, Ava. So
thank you.
We get to do it.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone watching. Appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That wraps up this exclusive discussion with Ava Duvernay. If you'd like to hear more from the Craft of the Director series, check out episode 263, which features director Mimi Leader discussing her extensive filmography. Or visit our YouTube page to find discussions with David O. Russell, Leslie Linka Glatter, and Guillermo del Toro. The Director's Cut is available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.